Zoroastrianism, Symbols and Values by Jacques, Duchesne-Guillemin. I'm picking back up on page 39. Through 42. Mitra. An explanation of Mitra can be sought in the etymology of his name, which is clear in the contract, and in the hymns dedicated to him in the Veda Rig 3.59 and the Avesta Yasht 10. This has recently been done by two scholars working independently, Paul Thiem and Ilya Gersevich. All the attributes and characteristics of the god can be reduced to the idea of personified contract, from which they can all be deduced by degrees. This is too easy a game, and one too full of hazards, shall we say, for instance, that Mitra procures wide pastures in order to reward respect of the contracts, or to make it possible. And why should contract have wide horses? By refusing all contraparative construction and sticking to facts, one falls into arbitrary improvisation. The facts that are much better justified if one recognizes that contract is a new name given to an ancient god, or what amounts to the same thing, a new god introduced into pre-existing patterns, namely those of the tripartite ideology. These alone allow us to take account of data such as those of the Brahmanas, which oppose Mitra to Varuna, like day to night, like this world to the other world, etc. These oppositions, which have helped Dumézil after Vergegna and Guntert to reconstruct the two aspects of sovereignty, are rejected as relevant by Thema and Gersevich, who noted that they are attested only in more recent texts. But what do the lacunae of the Rig Veda prove as against the concurring evidence of the many other Indo-European peoples? Besides, Mitra-Varuna opposition is already indicated, showing the way of Brahmanas where to follow in the two passages of the Atharva Veda and at least one of the Rig Veda. So much so that the Rig Veda, in its relative silence, far from representing the ancient state of things, the only legitimate basis for reconstruction, appears, on the contrary, to have innovated in this. One can then give full value to the fact that Varuna is to Mitra exactly as in Asha and is to Vohumana, Varuna, and Asha, more distant. Mitra and Vohumana near to man, as well as to the fact that, as Vohumana patronizes the ox, so Mitra, the god with wide pastures. The pair formed by Mitra and Varuna survives in Iran and Avestan, phrase Mitra Ahura Vedazanta. And the two great ones, Mitra and Ahura, it is scarcely open to doubt that Ahura in this phrase was a designation of Varuna, who in India was the Asura par excellence. His name is commonly specified in Iran by the epithet Mazda, wise, rather similar to the adjective Mitra, which Rig Veda 1.25.20 couples with Varuna. This does not mean that Ahura should have made wholly similar to Varuna, an opinion which has justly scandalized such scholars as Lommel and Gersevich. The god was strongly differentiated as a result of their own inner form, but the divergence of the outcome does not preclude our tracing his origins back to a common starting point. According to K-Bar, Ahura Mazda is not a continuation of Varuna alone, but of the whole pair Mitra-Varuna, the associate Mitra being replaced by the epithet Mazda, which characterized his near to man. Providential action, however, if Ahura Mazda absorbed Mitra in this way, which would account for the latter's absence in the Gathas. One must note that at any rate the Achaemenids were no longer conscious of the fact, since they worshipped the Misarya Mazdas, i.e. Mitra and Ahura Mazda. Bar would see in the merger of Varuna and Mitra into one god. The importance of Zoroastria's genius was a proof that Ahura Mazda was the first. Proclaimed by this prophet, however, no positive fact allows us to decide whether or not Ahura Mazda existed before Zarathustra's reform. What seems more certain is that Zarathustra enriched and exalted him by associating entities with him which had previously been dependent.